Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with yours truly, Sabrina Scott. Here on this podcast, I talk all about life, love, healing, transformation, spirituality, witchcraft, tarot, feminine energy, and everything in between. And for today's episode, I wanted to talk a bit about personal responsibility. And I'm thinking about this for a lot of different reasons. Well, first of all, as you guys know, today is the new moon. Super excited for the vibes of the now. I love new moons. I love full moons. New moons feel really nice and chill for me, kind of low key. I always feel kind of tired on both new moons and full moons. But the beautiful thing about the new moon today, I don't know if you guys are feeling the vibes, but for me it feels like this really subtle but powerful change in energy. And it's a time for transformation. It's a time for planting new seeds. It's a time for making commitments to ourselves about who we want to be moving forward. And obviously, I think that's something that we should all be working through all the time. At least that's kind of my MO in my life, is to constantly be intentionally learning, intentionally transforming. All of that stuff is a huge priority to me. Which is why I guess one of the reasons I'm loving the witchcraft thing and why it's resonated with me so much over the years is it really is so much a practice about personal agency, constant change, constant growth, constantly sifting through the soil of who we are and embracing that next iteration of who we think we can be. And I just love that, as I think so many folks just meander through life. And I know at my worst, that's definitely been me, just a victim of circumstances. And part of the reason I love witchcraft is it is all about that intentional empowerment, connecting with our ability to make choices, connecting with our ability to be decisive, connecting with our ability to change our lives. And with so much emphasis today on things like structural this, structural that, and I'm not going to say all that stuff is irrelevant. Obviously, it's not fully irrelevant. But I think there is something to be said for choosing to focus on what we can change rather than what we can't. Can we change all the systems and whatever overnight? No. And unless we're working in government or public policy or anything like that, likely we won't be able to make an impact on those things anyway. But what we can have an impact on is ourselves, our life, the choices that are within our capacity to make. We can make better choices, learn more about ourselves, why we are the way we are. And we can learn more with intention about who we might become if we change some of these little day-to-day habits, as well as learning how to make different decisions, maybe shifting our priorities or shifting our habits. And I think that's really empowering, actually, to put the power back in our own hands. And that's part of why I love witchcraft, part of why I love magic. It's a big part of why I am launching my course on feminine energy today. It's huge, and I want to make another episode about this, likely also today as soon as the website goes live. It's not live quite yet. But feminine energy for me is a lot about reclaiming that agency, reclaiming a sense of self. And weirdly, when I was living my life in more of a masculine energy mode, I think I was doing that as this way to kind of overcompensate for all these things that I felt I couldn't control. But I was trying to control the wrong thing. I was trying to control other people through my actions, specifically in my personal life. And that definitely was not the way to go about it. Grasping and clenching and chasing and trying to make things happen. that was not the way. And I think there's certain areas of life where it makes sense to tap into that energy. Not all areas of life, obviously. But for me, stepping into feminine energy was a way to reclaim my relationship to my agency on a completely elevated and new level, in addition to what I already did know from witchcraft and magic. But another reason I'm thinking about all of this, like not to just weave in a bunch of different topics, but I did watch that completely bonkers Netflix Twin Flames documentary, which I talked about in the last episode, completely batshit nuts situation. And today I listened to a podcast on Wondery about that group as well. And this is going to sound very unpopular. Everyone's going to think I'm an asshole, but I'm just going to say this anyway, because it fits into the topic today around personal responsibility and taking responsibility for ourselves and our choices. And I find it really interesting that the podcast I listened to it showed a lot darker aspects of this, like the way that people in the group behaved than the documentary. And I found it very interesting that, one of the people interviewed, I think the name was Katie or something in the documentary, was presenting like her behavior in certain ways. She was kind of playing it down a bit. And in the podcast, they actually interviewed the person that this woman was stalking. And the guy was basically like, yeah, she locked herself in my bathroom, like snuck into my apartment, not locked herself in my bathroom, was stalking me, and all this horrible shit to the extent that she got put in jail. And to be honest with you, and this is the part where you guys are maybe going to think I'm a total asshole, I really don't feel bad for anyone who got like swept into this group. And so let me say why. So what bothers me about the interviews with everyone that is being interviewed with having left the group, the one person I do feel bad for is the girl who was 19 when she got pulled in. Like, you're so young at 19. And I apologize. I know there's some 19-year-olds listening to this. At 19, you're basically a kid. And I know at 19, I thought I was like top of the world, proper adult, but you're really not at that age. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the teenagers listening to this, but you're not. And I feel so sad for that kid who was pulled in. But when people are grown-ass adults in their 30s and 40s who are being pulled into this weird group who's basically telling everyone to stalk people, it's just delusional and crazy. And what bothered me about the interviews with a lot of folks who left was they didn't seem to still be taking any responsibility for their own behavior. They weren't taking any responsibility for their own decision-making. And what it seemed like to me was a lot of these people were just heartbroken, and this is going to make me sound again like an asshole, like kind of heartbroken, mopey losers, which again, I'm sorry, is kind of rude to say, who were looking for a place that would basically just tell them what they wanted to hear. So if they were rejected by someone that they were obsessed with, the group would basically say, oh no, this person is your twin flame, you have to go chase them. Literally to the point of being imprisoned and getting in trouble with the law and stalking and breaking into someone's house and all of this craziness. Like, at what point do you have to take personal responsibility for yourself, especially since this group was online? And so it really does irk me, and I know I'm kind of going a roundabout way of talking about this, but it really does bother me when these people are not able to take full responsibility for their own behavior and their own actions. It's like, I don't care if someone tells you to stalk someone. You don't do that because it's not cool. It is not cool to stalk somebody. It is not cool to ignore someone's no. And so for me, there is so much there with this moral poisonousness. Like, it's completely immoral. Like, any notion of typical manners, decorum, respect for other people, respect for other people's boundaries. It's really bothersome to me to listen to all these interviews and watch these interviews with the ex-cult members And again, what I saw, it's really not as dangerous in terms of what are the consequences of leaving than other cults that I've observed. It's like it's all online. You just log off. It's not that hard. And I know that's going to sound really kind of rude, and I'll explain a little bit more about that, I guess, in later episodes, because I realize that sounds a little bit black and white. But it really does irk me when people are not able to take responsibility for their own behavior. Like when they want to blame everything on the leaders of this group, telling them to do this and do that to the point of being in prison. Like, at what point do you use your own discernment as a grown-ass adult to be like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't stalk someone. Oh yeah, I'm in jail right now. Probably I did something wrong. And I really think that taking personal responsibility for our own behavior, our own actions, our own inactions, that's the only way to really approach growth. And so if all of these people who have defected from this weird group cult situation are still not able to take responsibility for their own choices, if they're still going to blame it all on the leaders, for me, that's really not a way to do it, right? And I realize that sometimes it takes people quite a high degree of healing to be able to look at themselves in that kind of emotionally sober way without spiraling down into like a shame quicksand of self-loathing. Like, I totally get that. And it's really common for a lot of victims of abuse, but I do see this as something very different than intimate partner violence, family abuse, or in-person cults. I do see it as something quite different. And again, I'll talk about all the breakdown of why I think that later on in another episode, most likely. But again, today it's just all about personal responsibility. And yeah, it can be really tough to look ourselves in the face as we're still feeling hurt from things not going the way that we thought that they would go. Feeling upset about certain decisions that we made. It can be really hard to look at ourselves and think, okay, could I have made different choices? And that's, again, not to victim blame. It's just to say, okay, what can I learn from this and what can I do differently next time? And if that's not something that people are willing to do, and again, it can take a long time to kind of get to an emotionally even place where we can approach that type of introspection and self-reflection without going into that self-hate. And again, part of what taught me how to do this was actually going into business a little bit more seriously. Because within business, it's like you can't avoid these unpleasant truths about yourself. Like, I could not avoid forever that I hate doing numbers and I hate the accounting and I hate the bookkeeping and I'm not good at that and I get overwhelmed and I get paralyzed and I avoid it. You know, because if I just avoid that, then I go into this shame spiral of like, oh my God, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, I suck for not doing this. Spiral. And then I just avoid it more and more and more and more. And then it just gets more entrenched. But if I can be emotionally sober, take 20 steps back, look at it like eagle eye view, be like, okay, yes, this weakness of mine, this avoidant behavior, this thing I'm doing that is maybe not the best thing I could be doing is causing these problems. Okay, what can I do differently moving forward to make this all go smoother? It's really important to be able to do that. And it can take a lot of strength to be able to do that. If we're grappling with this insecurity at our core, where we feel like we are 100% inherently horrible, it can be really difficult to give ourselves any kind of constructive critique. But doing that constructive critique on a pretty regular basis, and again with love and kindness towards ourselves. Critique doesn't mean self-loathing. Critique doesn't mean self-hatred. Critique doesn't mean shame. Critique just means, okay, what did I learn from this? What can I take responsibility for? And it's only in taking responsibility for the things that do belong to us that we can really move forward. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people, you know? And to bring it back to my own journey with feminine energy, you know, there were some techniques I was being, some ways I was existing back years ago, you know, like chasing in relationships or pursuing, and I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. It was so naturalized and normalized to me, and I just wasn't happy after a certain point. I wasn't having the connections that I wanted to, and it just like was not the vibe. And so what I could have done was continuing to think I'm perfect and not doing anything to contribute to my current circumstances at the time. You know, and I could have just avoided any kind of self-critique, and I would have continued to have exactly the same experiences. But what I had to do was take those 10 steps back, 20 steps back, and be like, okay, this is the only way I know how to be. It's resulted in results I don't like. Maybe something that I'm doing can change, should change, has to change for me to get different results and for me to feel differently than I do. And so, you know, I was a big hardcore feminist, and I'm still a feminist. I'm just a different type of feminist than I was in the past. But I was like, oh no, like it's 2017, I'm going to go out and get it or whatever. I'm going to go approach. And I just was not, again, getting the results that I wanted. Like, my dating life was fine, but I wasn't getting like overflow of kindness and gifts, and I didn't feel like the center of people's world. You know, I didn't feel like a princess, really, which is how I wanted to feel in dating. And so I realized, as uncomfortable as it was, I was going to have to learn a different way to behave, because the way I was behaving was not getting what I wanted at all. And that can be a really uncomfortable thing, right? To look back at our past and realize that maybe some certain decisions we made, certain behaviors that we were engaging in, contributed to certain unpleasant experiences. You know, and I think it's really important for us to take responsibility for that. And connecting it to this wacky cult that I was talking about before, this weird twin flames universe, which again, I just think is complete bullshit, but it does bother me when people abdicate in this way. And by abdicate, I mean give over complete power and control to someone else. And that's what these people were doing in this group, right? They were giving complete power control to their coaches to decide like who their soulmate is, and, you know, go chase this person to the point you get imprisoned. Change your gender because I said so. They're completely unable to, or just decided not to, take personal responsibility for their own lives, because that's the harder path. That's the path where you actually have to use your discernment, use your fucking brain to assess people, to make decisions. And these people all just decided to put their brain on the shelf and not engage in that really tough self-reflection. You know, if the person that you claim to be in love with thinks that you're an insane stalker, and instead of doing some self-reflection and being like, maybe I should stop being so fucking intense, and like, maybe I need to actually respect their no and take a step back. Instead of doing that like a sane, normal person would, they're like, oh no, I'm going to become even more entrenched in my crazy obsession for someone who is not interested in me. I'm going to ignore respect and ignore consent and just go find people who just tell me what I want to hear, and then get to be my brain instead of me, and I'll just go do what they say. It's not my fault. I'll just, you know, it's very weird. And so part of the reason why I have no sympathy for like the idiots who got pulled into this, the ones who were full-on adults, not the teenagers, not the kids. I feel horrible for the kids who got pulled into this. But as an adult, if you're making the decision to go follow a leader who tells you to go stalk the person that rejected you, like, for me, that, you know, there is no like manipulation involved with that premise. It's like you're fully deciding to be a creep by participating in that line of thinking in the first place. Like, it's not a bait and switch like we see in many cults. It's full on. It's like a full on from day one. Oh, here you go be a total creep, because you don't want to face the fact that you're being a creep. So just, join a thing where your creepiness is encouraged. It's delusional. And so unfortunately, this can be what happens when people refuse to take personal responsibility for their behavior, for their actions, and for their decisions. And I realize this sounds incredibly harsh, and I'm okay with that at the moment, because I do think this group, from what I know of it, is a little bit different than a lot of the other cults that I've seen, where they're very straight up from day one about what their whole thing is. So it's like, if you go into that, you kind of know what you're getting into, it seems like to me. And it's based on ignoring the consent of other people. And so if you are okay with that from day one, to me, that is like your own fucking fault, basically. And I know that makes me sound probably like a jerk. And I'm okay with that. Like, it really bothers me, this whole thing. And if you guys haven't seen the Netflix documentary, go watch it. It's fucking nuts. And if you haven't listened to the Wondery podcast, go do that, because it's also just like, what the hell? And you get to see, the unflattering parts about herself that person left out of her own testimony about what she was doing when she was in that group. And so whenever people leave out the unpleasant behaviors when they're trying to make the other group sound bad, that's something I always pay attention to. And so I'm sure most of y'all listening to this are not in cults, thank God. High five to you. But I do see sometimes a desire in people, especially people who go to psychics, which is why I don't offer services as a psychic. I do sometimes see people who want to abdicate responsibility for their own lives. And I have had people hire me under the mistaken impression that I'm offering just psychic services. Like, people who would just say, oh, tell me what to do. Tell me what the future is going to be. Tell me what to do. And I always have to explain to folks, it's like, no, like, ultimately you are in the driver's seat of your life. I can give you some guidance, but at the end of the day, you're more than welcome to ignore everything I tell you. Like, by all means, go for it. Like, it's your life. Do your thing. And if it happens to explode, then come back and I will try to help you with that in terms of, okay, what can we do differently next time moving forward, and why? But everything I always try to offer to folks is all about redirecting that personal responsibility back to themselves, and also helping people move away from abdicating responsibility. Taking responsibility for our own shit is honestly not always fun. It can fucking suck. Facing the music can really be unpleasant. It can be depressing. It can be embarrassing. It can feel shameful. But ultimately, I think it only can help us when we come to face the reality of the consequences of what we either did or didn't do, no matter what area of life that's around. And I think a lot of people want to give up responsibility for their own lives and give it to a cult leader or a guru or their parents or whatever, because that's easier. It's easier to just do the thing. It's easier to follow instructions. It's easier to do the paint by numbers and color in a coloring book where the lines are already there than it is to learn how to draw. It's easier to just give up responsibility. It's easier to just give up and let someone else tell us what to do. And I think when we do that, we stay in child mode. And I think all these people in this group that I keep babbling about wanted to stay in child mode. They didn't want to grow up and be full adults, even though they were adults. And so we see this desire for prolonged childhood in this really unhealthy way. Which is why I'm all about, please, everyone, be your own individual. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. And that's why I'm all about, in my work, whether it's around feminine energy, or whether it's around tarot or witchcraft or magic, I don't want people to be reliant on me forever. And if people do decide to hire me forever, that's not because without me they're going to explode and die. It's because I perhaps add a value or help them turn things around and see things in a different light. Right? It just really bothers me when spiritual groups or people who are claiming to be spiritual give the rest of us a really bad name, and then everyone thinks everything spiritual is a cult, and I'm just like, no. No, it makes me so bummed. It's like there's so much power in spirituality, especially the spirituality that we find within ourselves. And that's always what I want to teach, right? Is people connecting with their own spirit, their own unique, ideas, interests, family history, ethnic background, cultural background, interests, and creating a unique to them spiritual path. I fucking love that. And ultimately that has to all come from within ourselves. And whether people are taking my tarot course, my magic course, my new course on feminine energy without bullshit, at the end of the day, what I want is for everyone to adapt whatever the hell it is I have to say to suit their unique situation. I don't want you guys to rely on me as a source of power forever. Like, maybe you listen to my work forever. Maybe you consume my work forever. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make tough calls about your own life. And I can provide guidance, sure. I can give advice, sure. But at the end of the day, each one of us is responsible for our own growth and our own wellness and the decisions and the choices that we make. And I think that's kind of awesome. And it's definitely the harder path to make our own decisions. It's the harder path to decide to learn new things. It's the harder path to do that assessment of our own situation and figure out, okay, well, I fucked up here, but I'm going to try something different next time. And I'm going to mix teachings from ABC. And I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to learn about that because I think that will help me moving forward. That's not an easy thing to do. But I think that's the most worthwhile, most fruitful path for all of us to take. To claim ownership over our lives. Rather than just being like, okay, I'm going to listen to everything this guru says. And obviously I want people to take what I have to say seriously, but if something doesn't resonate, then just fucking ignore it, That's fine. If people disagree with what I have to say, that's cool. I don't mind. If you want to take half of what I say and apply it to your life and ignore the other half, cool. That's great. What's important to me is that folks do that introspective work for themselves and commit to growth, whatever direction that takes you, And maybe our paths cross for a reason, a season, or forever. Who knows? But I do think that all of us have something to learn from everyone that we come in contact with if we choose to. And I love that everyone's path is different. I think it's a cool thing. And I do think that witchcraft and magic and tarot, the common thread for me with all these things, and of course feminine energy and thinking about it too, it really is all about personal choice. All of these things connect us to our ability to be responsible for ourselves. And that's part of why I find it so powerful. And I guess I'm going to leave the episode there for now because it's already been half an hour and oh my God, I could talk forever about this. So I just stopped. So Feminine Energy Without Bullshit launches tonight for the new moon. So stay tuned. I'll probably talk a bit more about it tomorrow after the live tarot reading for the week ahead at 11 a.m. Eastern time over on YouTube at youtube.com/Sabrina Scott. And I was going to do a little YouTube babble about my feminine energy journey, but maybe I'll just do a little bit tomorrow after the tarot, because it is going to be in the course itself, and I really don't want to say too much that's already in the course on YouTube, because I want to keep that sacred for the folks who sign up for the course. But I will share a little bit about my transformation and why I made this course and why it's important and why it's awesome. So catch me on the internet, friends, and mark your calendar for later tonight. And what else I want to say? You guys will be able to enroll in Feminine Energy Without Bullshit until November 2nd. And on November 25th, I'm going to be doing a massive Black Friday sale. So mark your calendars for that. And I'll also be announcing the live workshops I'll be teaching in December. One will be on protection magic and the other one's going to be on boundaries. I was going to teach them this month, but I've got some too much medical stuff going on this month and what else? And I think a lot of my American folks are going to be busy with family Thanksgiving stuff. So I was like, nope, let's just wait for December. It's going to be too hectic for a lot of y'all. Okay, friends, that's it. I hope you love the podcast. Go follow the YouTube. You guys know where to find me. Much love. Talk to you soon and happy new moon. Bye.